All right. So before we go on to our next speaker, which is Reverend Dr. Wai Ching Lee, I see a good friend of mine, Omar Khan, who I absolutely love the way he writes and the way he has a take on this whole pandemic. Omar, if you can just give us your comment, just briefly, about the Omicron strain. What have you seen? What have you read? What's going on? Just tell us, just really briefly before we give the floor to Reverend Wai Ching Lee. You can just give us a few minutes of what your take is of this moronic strain. Omar.
Well, I was happy to respond to an unexpected opportunity to sneak in and just listen to all the wisdom that was flowing, and maybe make a brief contribution. Anytime Nasiba says something's going on, I take that seriously. I am currently in Sri Lanka, and the vicissitudes of navigating the global panic porn scandemic, as I call it, is always a fascinating challenge. I just finished, if you are interested, on uncommonwisdom.online, did an article on global woes in the European COVID debacle, because Omicron has now turned Europe into, or has inspired Europe into going full fascist over the holidays, borders being shut to the UK because they're worried. This has been one of the most fascinating bits of sociology rather than science from the outset, where you have a scariant whose pedigree we're not sure of. They say it has greatest affinities to earlier strains from the 2020s. Nobody's quite sure whether this is another manipulated virus or not. There are too many non-synonymous aspects to it, as the expert class keep telling me, and from natural selection, they would expect to see more synonymous mischief in the mix, so to speak. It seems to be perfectly suited to occupy the cooler upper respiratory tract rather than the warmer, more vulnerable lung areas, which is one of the reasons why it's much more mild. When South Africa, there's South Africans here, but from what we read anyway, have not moved beyond the initial alert into heightened alert. Contact tracing has been set aside. Botswana has had virtually no COVID-related deaths over this period. And so if this were to supplant Delta, it would be a nice Christmas gift, because it would be basically God saying, you want a vaccine? Here, have one. And this one isn't crackpot. And this one doesn't involve invading autonomy. And this one, but of course, we'll take anything, even a blessing, and decide that, well, it must be a Trojan horse, and run amok. So what I was shocked in this article that we're looking at a situation where Austria wants to make it illegal not to be jabbed pretty soon. You may be paying fines, life-ruining ones. And I won't go and catalog each of the crackpot ideas in different parts of Europe, but only to say that the Danish data is, again, perfectly consistent with the South African data, insofar as virtually everybody affected with omni-cuckoo, as I call it, is vaccinated, 90% almost, according to the Danes. Mind you, even outside the Omicron numbers, the Danish numbers show 70, 75%, even from other variants, are currently vaccinated. So the fact that people are vaccinated and boosted and seem to get this, and that the reaction is therefore go and get more boosters, is on par with the same non-logic that has pervaded this whole sick spectacle from the beginning, culminating in the WHO today telling us to call off Christmas gatherings. And this is really fascinating because they clearly don't study immunology, because robust social contacts are far better for your immune system, as Dr. Ryan Cole reminded me today in our dialogue, than being locked up in isolation. There's a reason that when you're put in isolated confinement, that's like an ultimate punishment. But this idea that you have this exceedingly mild scariant, where most people are at most hospitalized for a night, if that, and that should mean calling off Christmas, is just utterly absurd. And it just shows you what the agenda is. Because there's nothing in the facts, there's nothing in the trend line that suggests that. And I'll pause in a second in case anybody wants to say something or ask something or just to get out of the way. But in another piece I was working on, I just looked at that from November 20th, which is around when the UK started hyperventilating over this, to today, there have been 7 alleged deaths with, at least, we don't know otherwise. Over that same period, there have been close to 300 suicides for those in younger ages. And these are just the ones we know about. So that is almost certainly, an undercount. Why we're talking about the first nonsense and not the second reality, not to mention those, who are suffering from hunger, who have been thrown into poverty, child labor, child weddings, is a moral calculus nobody should be able to understand. And I think that if we just remember not just to go into the weeds in trying to debate the nth degree of a scientific aspect, when it is so absurd, we also have to remember that this is just a moral outrage, and it's not even close. So if you ask the big questions and ask by what right do you inflict untested therapies, when do you make it a crime to exercise physical autonomy, then we're in the right conversation. And I think that's the conversation over a period that for many is festive, but this year is certainly sobering, that as this Advent period, which is a period of waiting, where we wait for something to be born, but it would be nice if some humanity could be reborn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Omar. That is absolutely amazing. And, it's such a nice transition to go from what you just said, from what Stefan was talking about, and he spoke a little bit about frequency healing. You are also very much involved in releasing. Just so you know, I put the 2 articles you spoke about. I put the links in the chat for everybody out there. Your new one, your brand new one, which you sent me, I put it in there. I haven't read it yet because you sent it to me today. That's in there already. And also you spoke about, this Omicron strain where they're now telling us not to have Christmas gatherings. The World Council for Health has done a piece on hugging this Christmas, being around your family, especially exactly what he said. I put that link there as well. And from what you've just said, before you came on, I did mention to a few of the speakers, Dr. Faisal Mansour is here as well. I mentioned to him that you discussed with me about doing, we said mid-January that we're going to be doing our next summit, which is going to be including the subcontinent, Sri Lanka, India, and Africa.
A South Asian Health Summit, as you had us participate in these wonderful Caribbean and African, health summits. So I think, a lot to see and a lot to learn from South Asia. On the hugging Christmas bit, I should just mention, even according to the US CDC, the 2 most dangerous comorbidities, number 1 was cited as obesity. So of course they wanted to lock us in so we wouldn't get any fresh air, move around or exercise. Certainly not get any vitamin D enriched sunshine or any germicidal air. But the second most lethal one was panic and anxiety.
Yes.
And I wonder what the 24/7 panic porn is supposed to stimulate, but panic and anxiety. So maybe over this period, we can not only hug the holidays, but be around people who engender in us peace and thanksgiving, because that's not just feel good. It is good in every visceral, immunological, as well as spiritual sense.
100%, totally agree with you. Recently I had to undergo some surgery, and our next speaker, which is Reverend Dr. Wai-Ching Lee, was sending me healing and positive energy from all over there, wherever she is. And you feel it. You can feel the positive energy. You can feel what people are doing for you. And we need that. We need to spread love, spread peace, spread hope. And that's I'm so glad that you came on and gave us these pearls of wisdom. As usual, I can actually still remember the first time I read an article that you wrote, and I was like, I'm not even halfway through. I'm finding this man, and I stopped halfway through, and I found you, and I emailed you immediately, and I was like, amazing. And it's all of us that have connected for a reason. And the way I met Wai-Ching was during the Caribbean Health Summit, like you were just saying. She happened to be exactly what you're doing now. She was on the side. One of our speakers had canceled, and nobody else knew, and I just brought her in to have a conversation. And we've been friends ever since. We talk to each other whenever we need each other. We're there to support each other. And from your words of wisdom, Omar, if you can just have a look, if there's anybody who wants to ask any questions of you, or if you can put your website, Uncommon Wisdom, which I absolutely love. I share all your articles. Can you put the link in our chat so everybody else here can see it? And if there's an email address that people can contact you who want to be involved in our South Asian Summit, which we're going to definitely do, I'm going to contact everybody who's on our roundtable discussion, and we're going to have a really robust discussion over 3 days, like we normally do it, in true World Council for Health Summit style, which we're going to do in the middle of January. So thanks so much for that, Omar.
Nasiba, just before I leave you in peace, in this period of peace, do you have Dr. Chetty coming on later?
Yes, he's coming on after Reverend Dr. Wai-Ching Lee. Is going to be Jessica Rose. He's going to be sharing her amazing new VAERS data, and then we're going to end off with Dr. Shankar.
When my dear friend Dr. Chetty comes on, have him tell you the story of the case I consulted him for in Sri Lanka, where in the rush to apply monoclonal antibodies at outrageous expense, had people put blinkers on in refusing to even think about applying much simpler interventions like his own 80-day protocol for less than nothing. And these people were terrified that the doctor might get mad at me if I suggest otherwise. And this is while they're on a ventilator. That's the terror we've inflicted. But anyway, I do ask Dr. Chetty about that.
I will. Thank you so much for your...
I'll leave you the links. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. And will you please put your website, don't forget,
I will.
in the chat. Thank you so much.